Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Texas Ballistics. My name is Josh, and I'll be your host. Today, we're going to talk about the 3030 Winchester. And what I'm trying to do is I've already developed the load for this gun. I love it. It's a Marlin 336. I want to say it's an A series. It's got the 20-inch barrel. It's got a 1 in 12 twist to it. It is the quintessential brush gun, is what I would call it. Short, quick throw, very accurate. I've got a little scope on it. It's a 339 by 40 with a BDC reticle in it. I've hit coyotes out to 325, almost 400 yards with it. Dropped them. Now, at that range, I would not recommend it. There is a lot of bullet drop at that distance. Just at 200 yards, you're talking about 6.5, 7 inches of bullet drop. So whether I hit it on purpose or if it was a good miss and I made contact, it's still a dead coyote. So I know that it is probably the gun that's killed more deer in North America than any other caliber out there. So I want to see if I can make it more accurate. And so what I'm going to do today is a ladder test, starting with Lever Revolution. It's a little hotter powder. It's from Hodgdon. It's specially designed for lever guns. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the full setup. I'm going to set up my dies, set up my roll crimp. I don't have the gun to actually chamber a round or two to check head spacing. My son just took it hog hunting, and I hope they don't get nothing because I wasn't invited. So we're going to do a ladder test, and we're going to start on the low end. We're going to be shooting their Hornady 160 grain FTXs. I've already opened the box because I've been kind of toying with the idea today. And the FTX is I think it's Flex Tip Extreme is what it stands for. I don't really know, but I've killed a ton of deer and pigs with that specific bullet with a load that I've already developed. Works great out of that rifle, shooting a Winchester 748 ball powder with 31 grains of powder. And today I'm using brand new Winchester brass, and as you can see, the mouths are pretty boogered up. Brand new, never fired. I think they'll all clean up just fine. I'm not really happy with this Remington brass just because when I pulled it out of the package, I mean, as you can tell, that's pretty boogered up. I mean, I'm sure their quality controls catches most of that, but this is what I got, and this is what we're going to use. Pretty sure I can clean all these up, so I'm not really that worried about it. Today we're going to be using a gold medal large rifle primers. This is the Federal. I would assume it's their match grade type primer. And I'm going to go my recipe for 160 grain FTX. And we're going to do a 3-shot ladder test. So on the low end, we're going to start with 30 grains, and we're going to jump half grain increments all the way up to 36 grains. So what I'll do is I'll load 3, and then I'll load 3 more, and then I'll load 3 more, 3 more, so on and so forth, and I'll put them in my container. That way when we get on the range, we will do our ladder test, and we'll see if my gun prefers a different load and see if it's more accurate than the load that I've already developed. The load that I've already developed for this gun is I'm using the same 160 grain FTX tips with Winchester 748 powder at my overall case length of 254. So we're going to seed these everything the same as my other recipe that I've already developed. And the only difference is we're just going to run a ladder test. Half grain increments from the low end of the spectrum all the way to the high end. And we're not going to get into the max pressures. We're going to stay about 1 full grain weight on powder away from the max load pressures. So we should be totally safe in running this test, and y'all stay tuned. All right, everybody, this is how I set up my dies. My press is a Hornady lock and load. It's a single stage machine. I use the lock and load bushings. And step 1 is put your bushing in there, turn it to the left, make sure it's locked in. And right now I'm using Hornady custom grade dies for a 3030. Shell holder I'm using is a number 2 shell holder. I've already got it in the machine. It is a number 2 holder, and to put it in, all you do is you just slide it into the railing and you'll feel it click in, and that's in. And so what you do is you unscrew your lock washer and you thread your die all the way down. And what you want it to do, and I don't know how well this is going to pick up, is you want to thread your die set all the way down till it makes contact with your ram. There's contact. So at that point, I'm going to go ahead and lock my lock washer in. And then that's set. So I can take this in and out, just quarter turn, pulls the whole assembly out. And from there, I need to set the depth on my decapping pin. This is your pin. This is your pin. This is your expander ball. This is just a threaded Hornady screw, and you thread her in. And what you want it to do is you want it to stick out just enough to pop the primer out. So they say 3/16, I think is what the dimensions say. I like it a little longer, maybe 1/4 inch. That's where I found that every one comes out, and I don't have any issues with it at that point. And then you just tighten it up, and that'll lock this in. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to fully run a case in there and then pull it down, and your expander ball pulls this threading down. Then you got to take all this apart, put it back in, tighten it back down. It's just a hassle. So there is a little bit of a learning curve. These are already de-primed. They're brand new. They've never been fired. So the case length starts out at 2.39. None of these are 2.39. They are all measuring 2.29, 2.28, 2.27, somewhere right in there. So after a few firings, this cases will grow. They will get longer, and then we can trim them once they get to the right length or longer. Okay, so when it comes to lubing your cases, you have a myriad of different selections, I guess you could use, and it's really your choice. I like RCBS Case Lube number 2. Lyman makes a really good case lube. Hornady makes a spray. It's Hornady One Shot. It's a case lube. Today we're going to be using One Shot. Now there are other ones out there. There are waxes and powders, and I mean, just you name it, it's out there. Today we're just going to be doing, Hornady One Shot. So the easiest way to do this that I've found, and obviously it's you want to use gloves. I'm not right now for the sake of the show. Give it a good little shake, and then just give it a rubbing. And as this, you'll feel it, and it gets kind of slick. From there you can take it, put them back in your shell holders. It's a pretty straightforward process. It's nothing hard, nothing strenuous. You don't have to have a PhD to do this. A lot of people get into reloading because it's fun. I like the challenge of trying to build a better bullet. You know, seeing how accurate I can make some of these older type bullets, cartridges. Done pretty well with them. Some I hadn't had a whole lot of, trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes. A lot of questions I do get asked is do you save money? Can you save money? And that all depends on how much you shoot, what type of shooting you do. I will say if you are into any kind of competition or wanting to get into any kind of competition, definitely reloading is an option for you. I do several different types of competition, from cowboy action to 3-gun to long range rifle to silhouette, pistol matches. I kind of do a little bit of everything. I'm just now kind of starting to get into the muzzleloader competition stuff. I've been doing archery for years. Got several state events under my belt that I've won. So once you get done doing all your lubing on your cases, you can put your lube up. So what I like to do after I get all my cases waxed or greased or sprayed or however you want to do it, lubed is what you want to get them done. So I like to take just a shot of this Hornady one shot, and just spray it into my die and give it a couple seconds to dry. Put it back in your press, and at that point you're ready to, and this is a full length sizing die, and off camera I have a rag, and what I'm doing is I'm putting all these cases on a rag, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So a lot of these case mouths were pretty boogered up, and they're actually coming out pretty well. Here's one, I'll show you the before. See how bent up and boogered up that is. Now these are brand new, never fired. And once I run it through here, that expander ball cleans all that up, makes it uniform again. And what we're doing over here, off camera, is we'll take our rag and we'll just kind of rub these and dry them off, get all that case lube off of them, and that'll get them ready for the next stage, and that'll be putting our primers in. So once I get all these done, I'll come back and we'll do the next step. So the next step, I've got all the cases prepped, cleaned. Obviously they were brand new cases, so I didn't have to do a lot of cleaning and prep work. So our next step is we have to put our primers in. So I have a Hornady priming tool. You really can't see it very well. I'll try to get a good angle on it. But if you notice that I have an LG on one side and an SM on the other side. And that's for large rifle and small rifle. And the easiest way to do this that I've found, instead of trying to pick these out of here one at a time, is turn this over on top of your primers and then just flip them over. And that puts all your primers where they need to be. You give them a little shake and they all line up just like they're supposed to. And then from there you can just put your case, your cover on them, and go to town. Okay, so how this works is when you're putting it back together, you got all your primers in there, you got your cover on there. You slide it into your receiver where your spring is. Slide it down, and always hold it down with another hand. Take your shell holder, slide it in the groove, and then as they slide up, everything's ready to go at that point. So what we do is we open up get our first primer in there, get it brought up, and that's before. You can see all the way through it. And then as soon as we put our primer in there, make sure it's flush. That's ready to receive powder. And we'll do all these just like that. I'm checking every one. And it's a pretty quick process from here on out. And once we get these done, I'll come back and we'll move on to the next step. So what we're doing right here is we're just putting powder in our powder measure. I'm trying to get it completely full. Pretty straightforward here. Pour the powder into the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take, these are just stickers, and I'm just going to cut them out. I'm going to write each grain weight that we're throwing on these, and what we're going to do is we're going to put one of these in here for, say, 36 grains. One in here for 35.5, 35, 34.5, 34, all the way down. That way I don't get confused over what I'm doing, because I'm going to load these just like I would my precision stuff. One at a time. I'm going to weigh each individual bullet just like I would any other match I'm going to, except I'm going to shoot these out of a lever gun. So that's how we're going to do it. And this next step's pretty boring, so just stay tuned. So now that I have all the powder weights done, 36 grains all the way down to 31.5, I need to set up my bullet seeder die. And I'll kind of go through that process. What you want to do is, first thing, you want to put your lock and load bushing adapter in there and get your bullet seeder threaded a little bit. Take a case, run it all the way up, and tighten it down until you feel the case, and it'll literally stop. And right there I've made contact. I'm going to back it off a little bit, just a little bit, not even a full turn. Tighten it back down. And at that point I'm ready to seat a bullet, or at least attempt to seat a bullet and see where it is. And I like to start real high. And I know that that's high because the cannler groove that's right here is going to be crimped, but we're still going to check it. I know we're long. We're at 265, and our max length for the chambering on my gun that we're going to shoot it out of, max length is 255. We're going to do these at 250, I think, is where my 250 is where my chambering is, and I know that that's long. So basically what I'm doing is I'm turning this down, and that's pushing that bullet further and further into that shell casing until we hit a number, and that's close. So that's 253, and we're going to go to, I think 250 is a good, and then we're going to do a crimp. and I'll do the crimp after I seat all these bullets. So I'm going to seat all these bullets, and then I'll come back and show y'all how we set our crimp. This die set has a crimp feature too. So y'all stay tuned. So what I do is, if you look at the bullet, we call this a pill. This is a boat tail design, and it flies through the air like that, so the wind that comes around the bullet like this creates a lot less drag, and it has a higher ballistics coefficient, which makes this bullet a lot more accurate than a standard round nose, stub nose type bullet that you would shoot out of a 338 or a 30-30. I'm sorry. I'm working on a 338 video next, so I'm trying to gear my brain up for that too. This flex tip allows you to put 6 into a tubular magazine, and without setting one round off from the other falling against it, that rubbery tip keeps that next round from touching off. But generally all I do is I take it, put my shell in there, put my bullet in there, make it kind of as straight as I possibly can, and when I run my ram up, I tap it just to get it started, and then I just slowly pressure all the way to the bottom of the stroke. And I found that if I do it that way, I tend to have less case deformation than if I just were to ram it all the way in. Sometimes these brass is a real soft metal, so a lot of times if you just ram it in there, what'll happen is your neck and your shoulder right here will collapse, bubble out, and then that round is pretty much useless. And so that's kind of how I set up each bullet, and I measure each bullet. If they're short, I put them a little longer, or put the bullet in a little further. Generally I don't have them long. If anything, they just kind of go the other direction. But let me seat all these bullets, and then I'll come back on and do a crimp, show you how to set up the crimp die feature on this. So now that I've got all the bullets seated to 2.540 inches, I need to set up my crimp. And how that's done is I set my bullet back in there, run it all the way to the top of the stroke, make sure my bushing is still in there. And once my bushing is in there, all the way back down to where the bullet makes contact with the shoulder. And at that point, I'm going to go quarter turn and then lock it back down. And you should feel it cam over just slightly. That wasn't enough. And I've done these enough that I know, just give it a good once over again. Can probably go a little bit more. And that's it. And I'll run all these back through there one more time to put a little bit of a roll crimp on there. And the next time you'll see these will be on the range, and we'll be testing them. So y'all stay tuned.